And we're back with me, Johnny McMurray, on the On the Spot Football Podcast for yet another fantastic guest. Today's guest is a friend of mine. He's the pioneer behind the PFA in Northern Ireland, and he is a household name. He's won titles, multiple clubs, and he's here on the spot. It's Mr. Michael Carvill. Michael? I had to say Michael.
I think weird. No, thanks very much. Thanks for having me. I think you contacted me previously, and I think it was a bad time, but I'm delighted now to get on. Unfortunately for myself, it's just after Seamus Heath that I've seen obviously has been on, and I don't understand how you could cut that down to an hour and 30 with Seamy talking and telling the stories, but no, I'm looking forward to it.
That could be a part 2, though. Do you know what I mean? Let the in there. That man's he's a complete football man. Is probably the best way to say it.
Seamy, and I'll obviously alluded to it in the stories as well. I think Seamy was the first football man I met growing up, kind of thing. He came in with the IFA badge. He did the camps. And he just came in, and obviously I'm more probably from Saintfield originally, and he came in from Belfast, and he had this swagger about him. Mm-hmm. And I remember he did the round the world, and one of the camps he's doing keep you upbeat in the way he spoke to kids. You're just like, wow, this man is as a young kid, you're like, wow, this man's my hero kind of thing. Yeah. So Sammy came into our area, and obviously lives down there, and he is really driven football so much, like, and so many people. And football people where we come from, everybody knows Seamus Heath. Like,
he always talks. We talk massively about you, Andy, the whole Kilmore connection, him being down there and helping out and coaching. I think they use the same pitch to do the development phases or their grassroots pads and stuff. And he's nothing but fantastic words to say about you.
Yeah, but no, I think he coached my school team, and then obviously me and Andy ended up when I came back. I was at Linfield and Andy was at Glentoran. We ended up coaching again with him, with a club Tullymore. You got us in, and we're doing coaching. But there's a lot of talking grassroots football about parents and dealing with parents. I haven't worked it out yet. I don't think anybody's worked it out yet. But one thing I did watch for years was Seamy dealing with parents. Now, that either went one of two ways. He ended up by the scruff of the neck up against the wall, but he was as blunt and straight up with the parents, and it was kind of a good education for us, because it was kind of like, you try and be nice to all the parents and keep them happy and things like that there, but they will turn on you as soon as something goes wrong and things like that. I think Seamy had just had all that experience, and me and Andy are probably looking at him going, this man's crazy. He's mental.
Like, he doing this as a coach educator?
Exactly.
What's going on?
He's mad. Some of the stories he tells is mad, but I think as you now have grown up and you've seen it, you're going, oh yeah, I get it now. I can see why he did what he did and why he behaved in that way as well.
It must be nice to have somebody like that as kind of like a mentor in a way. You're all based down in the same area. You've coached together. You end up going into coach education, same as Andy. You've had a fantastic career. So he's probably been there throughout it all and be able to guide you probably in the right way.
Yeah, I'd probably say actually, see me at one point. I was at Charlton. I got released at the time, and it was an interesting time because I got released from Charlton Athletic. It was like January time, I think. And it was about 18, 19. And I had an agent who was a guy from London who I had never really met.
Okay.
Who was, which I try and educate parents on today as well. Like, he had no care about me. You know what I mean? Once I wasn't going to make it, then you're not good enough. You know what I mean? He rings you when things are going well. No interest. And I was like, who do I call here? Who do I contact? Do you think about that when you're just being released by a Premier League club? I was like, who do I call? So obviously I let my parents know, and then I rang Seamy. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, within the space of, I'd say 10 days, I was at Wrexham. So I was up living in Ben, Seamy's son's house, who now is actually an agent himself. So that was it. And I was up there, and I ended up, so weird, Robert Garrett, who I grew up with, playing with the whole way through, was on loan at Wrexham at the time. We went together, and then I ended up signing for Wrexham. But you look back at that, and it probably was, if Seamus wasn't involved when I was younger, that wouldn't have happened.
Yes.
Those wee small connections wouldn't have happened. So it's obviously one of them things that when you're talking to players going away now, you're making them aware that this isn't just going to happen. It's going to be a straight line kind of thing. There's going to be things that are going to happen, and you are going to need to potentially have something you can turn to. And for me, to be fair, she helped me massively at that point.
One of the things I want to ask you here is, while we're talking about it, do you think that there's enough people like that in the game today, that the likes of, like, I never had somebody like that I go to. Ultimately, I wasn't good enough to ever need that. So take that out of the question, but at the same time, there's a lot of kids who do go over. You have a lot of agents who are probably in it for the wrong reasons. They want the money and they're not really interested in the kids. And you've got other people who maybe don't do as well, but are very interested in the kids. And from the PFA's perspective, you have to now look after these people and try and educate them.
See when people speak to me about the PFA, there was 3 reasons primarily why it really got me going. Like people used to say to me, I think people are looking at the PFA at the start and thinking, is this about you or is this a career drive or something like this here? And it never was. It was probably down to the fact of what I seen a massive gap in.
Okay.
And one of those things was that at 16 years of age, the amount of players that went to England underprepared, no idea what they were walking into. Parents were sold a dream, and they were going over to an absolute cattle market. And that's the only way I can describe it. And I've heard some of the people on the show, I think James Knowles listened to his. Joe McDonald was absolutely fantastic. And I think that's his story needs told even more. I mean, thinking of including it more in PFA education as well. You go across to England and it's just like, bang, you're now a footballer.
Yeah.
This is it. This is your life. You're a footballer. So it's gone. See this coming from you're the top player in your country. Everything's going to be easy. This is the reality. And people, if I could capture that feeling for a young player and explain it, I've tried to talk to people about it. You can't explain it until you live it and breathe it. And it is difficult. It is hard. It is struggling. It's travel. It's commitment. It's sacrificing your best time of your life with your friends back home, and you give it all away. But who do you turn to? Mm-hmm. And the people you turn to is your family. And your family, it's so difficult for them because they know it's your dream. And you don't want to disappoint your mum and dad. You don't want to let anybody down, kind of thing.
Plus, your mates think that you've got this opportunity. Yeah. They don't have it, and you're trying to.
You're only playing the Premier League. No, you buy us a Ferrari, and all you buy us this. And you said that, go on. My God, I'm trying to get into the under 18s here. I know that's the reality of it. They think you're loaded, no. But you're sitting there going, and you're looking at it and think, who do you talk to that's neutral? Who do you pick up the phone contact, and you don't think you're going to be judged? And also as a player, you have to have a wee bit of resilience about you and fight. But every player suffered and struggled. So I think for the PFA, the first thing I looked at was like, if we could get somebody that could reach out to those players when they go across. The thing we're going to try and do this year is send a letter to all the players that are moving to England, just to say, look, when you're across there, the PFA in England is unbelievable. They'll support you. We're also here. If you want us to come over, we'll come over. We'll take you out for a bite to eat, and we'll talk to you about everything other than football.
Yeah.
Because what do we do as football people? You turn off and you go,
constant. Yeah.
Football, how you playing? Have you scored? How's things? And they're under that much pressure. They'll probably turn and go, I'm doing really well. No, I think I'm doing well now, to try and keep up their appearance of how they look. But for me, they're struggling inside to cope with the adaptation of moving across the new cities. Like I remember being in London, like where I grew up, probably some of you. All right, hiya, you all right? Morning. How's things? You walk down the street. I remember coming out of my digs in London, walking down, and like, morning, good, hiya. All these people, and they're looking at me going, what are you doing? Don't talk to us. What is this guy? Like, you know what I mean? So after about 3 months, then I thought, I'm not going to say hello to anybody. So you change and you adapt and you manage things like that. But it's just, I think there's a gap there, as you're saying. Players need that wee bit of help off the pitch. And if we can do that through a phone call, a wee bit of support to help them when they're across there, I think it helps them in their career. And there's no shame in turning around and saying you need help. And if we can provide that, obviously I'm very good, obviously, and you mentioned Andy Water from the Irish FA. He's brilliant because he's working with him in the academy. So to build a relationship with him, and that academy, for me, it's just a godsend. It should have been here 10 years ago. Yeah. They're so lucky to have it now because they get that taste of what it's really like. And they can reach out to him as well and ask for support as well. So I think that was one of the main reasons around it. And then obviously the other 2 reasons was Jay Thompson. At the time when I was looking into it, and obviously what happened with him and what happened since with Michael Newbury, and the shock and the reality that footballers are struggling and there's an issue within the game around their well-being. Again, didn't have anybody directly to go to because the clubs had to do what they had to do, and they tried their very best, clubs, to manage all that, but it's difficult. People like Dash and Niffle, their governing bodies, yes, they'll support, but their job's to improve football and develop the game.
It's a league-based thing. It's not an individual-based.
Exactly. So when a player needs help, who do they turn to? Where do they go? And so on. So the fact that we can help and support those players off the pitch is massively important. And then the final thing was for me at all times was improving the league, improving the Irish League, improving the contracts, promoting the players, and bringing that sense of professionalism that I think the league is gearing towards and needs with more full-time players. But I'm not convinced we have the infrastructure to sustain it and keep it growing. And our job is obviously to make sure we're protecting the members around that. So around salaries, contracts, improving their conditions, making sure they're aware of their rights as a player. And then for me, the most important thing is the new contract that will potentially be out this season, which if you've got every guest in here, I think we've all signed, I'd say it in all the rooms I've been in, we've all signed the same RIC contract for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And when I asked the players in the dressing room to put their hands up, who's read their contract, none of them read their contract.
As long as you've got your money and it's down there.
And that wee figure, as soon as something goes wrong, first they ring us straight away and go with, and then you go through the terms and conditions of the contract, and they're like, I didn't know that. So it's a wee bit of both. So yeah, so that was probably the whole reason around why the PFA for me was needed.
See, whenever you talk about the PFA and the hard work that's went into it, now I've probably got to know you more since we've stopped playing football because of the PFA.
Yeah.
Than probably what we did playing against each other. But what is it that you see happening or developing over the next 3 or 4 years, and how do we change the league for the better?
Yeah, well, the changing of the contract is massive. It's huge because in a way then the players will understand their rights, their conditions, better protections for them around injuries as well. And if we can get that to a point where they're doing education, there's a part in the new contract potentially that will allow them to do more education and get support to help them whilst they're playing. That's huge, because I don't think anybody's actually thought about 5 years down the line yet. You're now having Larne, Glentoran, Linfield and Coleraine players and young lads now coming in there. You're 18, 19 in a full-time environment. You know, people, and this is a controversial one, people always say to me about the money in the league, and there's lots of money in the league. Realistically, the money in the league at the very top end for the top players is good. And there's some players on obviously decent money, but nobody's going to earn enough money to retire.
No.
As soon as they finished, it's over. If they have mortgages and things like that, they're going to be struggling like everybody else. So there's this myth about money being great in the Irish League and people are well paid. I see it the other side, where they're so vulnerable. And if you have an 18-year-old who's trained full time, like I did when I was younger, and they're not focusing on their career or getting a job or what they're going to do afterwards, then when they get to 22 and 3 and they're not full time anymore, and then they go into a part-time environment with the hybrid league potentially, and they're training 2 nights, that's a big fear for me, because it's kind of like we're all pushing full time, everyone's saying, oh, full time this, full time and that, but we're not actually thinking about the individual players, because they could sacrifice the next 4 years, go full time, earn better money, not life-changing money, better money at the end of it. But if you're doing an apprentice as a spark or a plumber and you're working 9 to 5, and then you're a plumber and you step out, you've got a career for life. Yeah, you're sitting there with a career for life, and you're earning money, and you can go out and do that, and you can work during the day. Footballers come out of this full-time model. Nobody, like a club, unfortunately, and they've got the right to do it, it's not going to turn around and go, are you all right? But with when we release you here, have you got a job? Can you? Yeah. Are you going to be okay? They kind of say, look, we're letting you go, or such and such wants you, and also we're going to sell you, kind of thing. Or you're going to move you on at the end of the season because you're not making the grade. Yeah. Nobody turns around is going to turn around and go like, are you all right? But financially, with your stuff.
Also, I hear there's a wee pay pack to do you for 6 months to get you by.
To get going. Nobody giving you. And I say it when I'm in the change room with all the players, and I say at the start, see when you finish at a club, whether you're, and I always say, I'm Joe Gormley, I said at Clintonville, and you're Joe Gormley when he leaves Clintonville. The best one I seen was Chris Shields even Dundalk. I think we all believed when we left, they would line the streets and sing our names and give us a hero's welcome and buy out and things like that. And you've seen it yourself in your career. You walk out that door when you leave a club and you get a text message, maybe a phone call from a few players, and somebody from the board would ring and thank you for your service. That's it. Yeah. There's nothing that comes with it. So
set you back once or twice through the year to see certain people probably use you to have a chat with people.
Exactly. So that's the reality. So it's like 7 years, you sacrifice everything for football love for 7 years, you leave. Don't be expecting that club to then pick up the pieces.
They don't owe you anything.
Don't owe you anything, and when you leave, you're on your own kind of thing. So that's where I see the beauty and the importance of the PFA is that now they have a body they can go to. We can say, well, this is what we're talking about in the change room, like about education, about trying to help you get a career, trying to help you do something outside of football so you can enjoy your football more and improve and perform better. These are all the things we're saying. And I know it doesn't make sense to you when you're in that dressing room and you're surrounded with 20 fellas and you're thinking, I'll be all right. I'll be good. No, I'm going to do this. But the reality is now, which I love, is like our phones are going constantly at the PFA because people are contacting us about help around injuries, contracts, education, bursary, support. And it was a message I had the other day and kind of thinking like, you're in the weeds and you're just doing the work day to day, but you don't appreciate that before we started this journey of the PFA throughout the last 4 years, people are now like just naming us in the paper, like saying, I want the PFA, or I got this with the PFA. The PFA did this for me, and you're always going to get negative stuff as well. That's part and parcel when you're trying to help people. But the amount of people now that when I walk into the change room come up to me quietly, and it's the best feeling I've had in a long time, and to say thanks.
Yeah.
That alone is why the PFA is worth it, because they don't need to broadcast it. They don't need to go to social media and sing it. They don't need to be fake about it, but they just literally walk up to you and go like, thanks. Because if I wasn't able to speak to you at that period and what I was going through, I was really struggling and just want to say thanks. And you're saying that's why you're on it. So yeah, the PFA, big thing for us, improve professionalism in the men and women's game, grow it, try and bring the players' voices to the table. I have this feeling, I'll be careful how I word this, players like us, when we were playing, we seen it. We knew what was happening. We could actually turn around and advise the clubs on what change is needed, because we're living and breathing it, we're playing in it, and we can kind of get a feel of it. So the player's opinion is so important. And we love the game. Most footballers play it because they love the game and they care about the game. So if you're getting the opinion of the players and bringing that to Jared Lawler at Niffle and saying, look, the clubs are saying this, but I've got a survey here with 300 players that are saying, like, this needs to improve, this needs to change, these are the things. That's powerful, because then Jared looks at that and goes, right, okay, well, we've got the clubs saying this, with the players saying this. How do we look at a better way to improve the league? And before, with all due respect to the clubs, it was the clubs that were making the decisions.
Yeah. It's give players a voice.
Yeah. It's give them a voice. And whether they like to admit it or not, the clubs, when you're a club, your role and responsibility as a club official is always to protect the club. And I get that. But if you're voting on football decisions and football matters on how to improve the league, that's where I think it's grey area, because you'll always revert back to protecting your club, your empire, and what's being built within your Irish League club. So for me, that's where you need to kind of look at it and go, but yeah, okay, we can't think like this. How do we push on? And the best example was when Lauren came in, and obviously you're well aware of it. Lauren came in and the way they did things, changed structures, set up investment in their youth, facilities, and the whole...
Yeah, creating a different narrative. They employed Gavin Clements, sorry.
Yeah.
Niall Curneen took over as general manager, became more professional within that 3 years, and then the 5-year plan worked.
And
do you know what I mean?
And that's what I was talking about there something today about. And I know we're on the cusp of Lauren winning the league again. I haven't won it yet. I haven't won it obviously with the game on Saturday, but that is success, because when you think about it, when Kenny stepped away, everyone's like, oh no, we'd see when Kenny leaves, everything will fall down. But what Kenny did was he invested obviously the money into the infrastructure and built the club. So now Lauren have that years of infrastructure in place that they've improved the game. Now there you'll see the success if they keep building on and growing on kind of thing. And that's what I think the PFA have to look at, is trying to work with clubs, because the clubs are doing their very best. And this is something I say to all the clubs, like, don't think the PFA is coming in here as a union to badmouth any clubs.
Yeah.
We know what it's like for the clubs. A lot of them are volunteers. They give up a lot of time. Without them, there wouldn't be a game. They're doing great work. But when we talk about then improving the league and taking it to the next level, and we want to challenge, we want to be in the same power of, I know Seamus mentioned it as well, the League of Ireland clubs. The reality of it is then you're going to have to look at ways that we can't sit still. We have to think of what's next, how do we improve it, how do we get better? And I think the PFA can play a pivotal role in that by working with NIFL and the Irish FA to try and change the narrative around what's needed and how to support it.
Whenever you talk about the clubs and the professionalism of clubs, and some clubs are full bang smack, they've got the investment, they're able to employ the people it needs to be. For the clubs that aren't able to do that, what do you think that they have to do to try and upskill themselves to get into a position where their professionalism's in there, the club's structure set up in place, and how do we actually help them put the structures in place that they know is the right thing to do?
Yeah. I suppose it's difficult to name all clubs, but I will take a club that I was at for an example. I was Dungannon. Now, there was a joke about Dungannon about the fans throughout the Irish League, wasn't it? It was like kind of like you played Dungannon on a Tuesday night and there was like a small amount of fans there. You look at Dungannon, what they have now, facilities-wise, the youth setup, and if anybody knows about anything about youth, the Dungannon youth is incredible what they've done.
Yeah.
And I think Joe Marguerite is heavily involved in that with Rodney, obviously, and Dixie, in terms of they built a really strong youth section and he did things right for years with the youth. And then all of a sudden you see these players coming across Dungannon youth and then getting moves across to England and things like that. I think what clubs can do is the youth, is look at it from building bottom up instead of top down. And obviously with that, trying to do it the right way, it will take time. Football is amazing. Like, I think Leicester City had to seen something there. It's relegated.
10 years down to League One.
Yeah. And 10 years ago, we're all sitting here going,
what an unbelievable season.
This is incredible. This is amazing. And now they're in League One and nobody's talking about Leicester City, and you're kind of looking at it and going, wow. There's a lesson there that what you do now as a football club, you will see it in 10 years' time, like what you've invested in, or where you've chosen to push your efforts. And you talk about investment as well, and it's interesting. Look, if somebody comes in with loads of money, does it make it life easier for you? Probably.
Sure, yeah.
But with that investment comes responsibility.
Yeah.
And if you invest, like, if you
also opinions.
opinions
Somebody
as well.
One of them wants to be able to say what happens with it, where it goes, what they think's best for it. And
I think, and my members are probably going to kill me here by saying this out loud, I think sometimes clubs maybe go, let's go win the league.
Yes.
Let's go big. Let's go and win the Irish League. Let's get into Europe and push into Europe. But you've probably seen it, and I think Shamrock Rovers are the best model of it that I've seen in a long time. They keep getting in. They're keeping getting in Europe, and they keep progressing because the infrastructure underneath is fantastic now, and they've reinvested the money and they've done it right. It's the fear of that you go heavy, win the league, and then underneath the club, you haven't invested in the youth, you haven't invested in a general manager, you haven't looked at the bigger strategy, the bigger picture, and effectively now, the clubs in the Irish League are businesses now. You're running businesses, and there's more income coming in, so you have to try and not keep up with the old days where it was like Linfield had the most money. Let's try and compete with Linfield and things like that. There, you kind of have to look at where you're at, have a strategy, have an idea of realistically where you can go with investment and without investment, and that, for me, if you get that bit right, then it gives you a better chance of being successful. And I think Dungannon, Irish Cup last year, Irish Cup final this year, and the youth coming through and the amount of young players they're still producing and selling on to other Irish League clubs.
Then half the clubs you don't even see the kids that are going across the water.
Yeah,
you're just hearing names and they're away again. And
100%. And that's interesting as well, because the youth, that's another thing. Like, you don't hear much about that, do you? Like, in terms of how many academies. My young man's 9 years of age, and he's playing football and all. So I'm now watching him playing football in the leagues in Belfast that we all grew up in, and you're kind of looking around, you're seeing all the Irish League clubs. He's playing for Kilmore out, and he's loving it. But you see all the Irish League clubs, you're kind of looking at them going, you just watch them, because the Irish League club ads, and you see what the coaches are like, what the standards are like, and what they're doing, kind of thing. And I think Sammy spoke about it far better than I could ever. You kind of look up, some clubs are doing it the right way, and some clubs are maybe doing it a different way. But
that's, well, not to jump in there, but it's I feel like it's whenever I went through it, I took a wee lawn team last year with Jeff, before he went in as the assistant, and done it for a couple of weeks, and it was very much geared around the teams that you were playing had to win, and it wasn't really the kids, it was more so the person on the sideline managing. And I was thinking, man, that's not. I need the best kids to feel what I think is an ego. You shouldn't have an ego with that.
Yes, I think they hit the nail on the head. And it's interesting because you look at it and you kind of go, I wonder how you change the narrative. The Irish have tried to change over the youth strategy of banning league tables and results and things like that. They're not promoting it, which I can see from a governing body perspective, 100% that's the way you go. But then the realism is then if the coaches aren't educated on it, doesn't matter if it's a league table. They'll keep a record of how many games they've won on
last week. We won 9 out of 9.
9 out of 9. He's got 3 assists and 10 goals. You're going, oh no, it still comes down to the individual coaches at the club. And can they bury their egos and put it away and lose a game of football, but develop young players and be happy to do so? That's the difference. And I suppose we're all the same. Everyone wants to win, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with wanting to win in youth football, and you can still win.
You need to distill the fact that kids want to win.
Exactly, more than anything.
That they need to be hungry for it too, but at the same time, it's fine line.
Fine line, and this is where it comes down to as well. And I don't know if we're going to do youth football talk because we could be here a long time as well. But my thing that annoys me the most is, you're probably the same. When I go back to football now, they've changed the size of the small sided games, which is fantastic, which I'm very envious of, because we grew up in the 11v11 model, which was ridiculous.
It's great for me. Yeah, I get toe who got that hard and that high that at some stage was going to go in.
Big nets on the keeper stand looking at it.
Tiny Harrison's full size net.
Yeah, 100%. You're looking at that and you're going, it's different now. The small sided games have helped. Have definitely helped technical players and things like that there. But I think the environment that we grew up in, and I played for St Andrews in Belfast at about 12 and 13. We had an incredible team. Like, it was littered with Chris Gisman, Robert Garrett, Craig Cathcart, Trevor Carson. We had to get rid of Trevor because he wasn't getting tested, because of that fact we were just so strong. Or when every game Trevor was standing and that's bored, and things like that. And Johnny Black, Grant Gardner. We literally had a team. Eamon Murray. I think you play with him as well. I travelled up with. Like, we were a joke, but that was kind of what it was. I remember going playing teams, and the parents, it was like, and scouts, and everybody just followed us and that lined up the pitches. But it was that same mentality that, in our coach, we were playing to win. Yeah, like, we were playing to win the Northern Cup. We were playing to win leagues. It meant everything to us. But you look back at it, and I don't know if you look back at it, maybe you don't, you enjoyed it, because I was so did I loved it as well. It was the happiest time of my life. But you look back at it and you go, but were we probably missing that wee bit of coaching, that wee bit of guidance, that wee bit of thing that would have made you a better player when you're older, that you needed to be instilled in you then? But all we were probably thinking of, probably the same as you, was, see if that ball goes over the top, I'm bang on that, I'm slotting that line, that's me happy, and I'll play on that instead of coming getting the ball maybe to my feet and trying to develop that way. I think that environment is still there slightly, and we still have to change it. And the only way to do that is through the coach education and through supporting clubs, so that they know, this, it's great when keep them winning mentality, but can you make sure you're developing the players? Because see, when they're 17, 18 and they're stepping out in the Irish League for the first time, and they don't have that technical ability, that they've missed that opportunity to get coached at that age. I hate to say it, but it's on the player, but it's also on the coach.
100%.
To give that to him as well. So,
being in coach education for a long, long time, you're obviously at the very top. You're coaching the elite players from England, Scotland, Wales, absolutely everywhere. And when you look at the youth system that we have in place, and this is no criticism to parents, because if we don't have parents coaching the kids, we physically wouldn't have any youth development squads at all. Like, we need them. But it's, how do we, and we always talk about players going in, players should be in coaching the kids and they have a better technical knowledge and all this sort of stuff. I get that, fair enough. But not every player makes a good coach. And some parents make fantastic coaches. How do we be able to educate the parents to do that? Because we don't have them right amount of players to go in and coach every age group.
Yeah. I think if you look at it, and this is something I've said for a while as well, I think it's tried with national leagues. I think there's talk about trying to introduce it now. You need to get to a point where 12 years of age, I think, where you have your NIFL only academy league, where it is perceived to be the best players from all the areas play at that level, and it's best v best. It's kind of like the EPPP in England, where you get them together, train them, and then you also do work with them, and the ex-players, the parents, if not any coach, if they're good enough and they're good with working with young players, because sometimes, as you say, ex-players aren't good with working with young kids. Getting them in, working with young players, good coaches at that level, turn the games into a wee bit more of development and play the best we best in different formats, maybe 3v3s, 5v5s, 7v7s. Here in England, they're doing all sorts of football festivals and all, and just mixing it up. So the players are getting a feeling of different type. You have that side there, and I think then you can better support the people working at that level, because what's happening at the minute is you're delivering coach education to people working in Irish League academies, people working with grassroots clubs, and then people working with development social football, as I call it, where there's like maybe kids that are just turning up, really, really love football, happy to be there, and don't care about anything else than just having fun with their friends. So what we're doing at the minute, you're trying to develop everybody with the same education, but the reality about it is there's people that are working here with young players that are good, massive potential, who are going to be our future players playing in the Irish League, that at that point they need a different type of coaching. Your grassroots clubs need supported just to make sure that they can manage parents, they can obviously get players out playing, and if they need to push players up in age or move them on to get, challenged, they need support about that. And obviously these group of players need to really enjoy it and have fun, and allow the parents to go in and coach them and create a really good environment where football teaches them a lot of lessons, a lot of enjoyment, gives them the healthy life, it keeps them fit, and they love it. So that's for me where the issue probably lies, is that we're trying to do so much to cater for all the coaches that it's hard. But if you can get that bit right, where we can help the people working with the technical players, so you can really support them, whether the ICFA go in and do mentoring with them, support those coaches working at that level, that's going to be massively important. And then I think the grassroots clubs will always, to be fair, if you can get somebody in there, good parents and good people at the grassroots club, just to try and keep them supported and help them. But the reality is, and this is something at Kilmore we're at the minute, if you do well with the team at grassroots, the success of that is you develop good players. Now the other part of that then, if you develop good players,
they go elsewhere.
They go to the Irish League academies, or they come in and ask them to go up, and then they go up and get more training, more contact and things like that there. So that's the balancing act for the grassroots clubs in the middle. I think Green Island are probably one of the best at over the years. They've done fantastic in terms of developing players. But the reality of it is
they go to Crusaders.
Or they move on to different Irish League clubs, and that's where we're at, kind of thing. So for me, and looking at the Irish League coach education model is fantastic. It tries to get out there and educate coaches. The amount of coaches coming through the grassroots is brilliant. They're learning a lot, and obviously I've seen you coming through the coach education courses yourself,
which I need help with, so we'll talk about
something out. But the amount of people that come through, but it's just kind of trying to, as you say, the reality of it is perfect world, perfect scenario, and Seamus said it, like Irish League under 10, under 11, under 12, under 14, 16 coaches should be a paid role. Because you deliver coach education, it costs you money. As a volunteer coach, you travel up and down the country, you have parents' expectations on you, you have the club expectations on you, and you're developing players that, be realistic now, that when they get to 16, I'll use Linfield as an example. A couple of years ago, some of the players, I think it was cost over £100,000 in money generated, obviously with the players moving on, and they get kicked back for the development fee. So you're devoting your time for 4 years at that club as a volunteer. You know what I mean? That's difficult. That's hard. And then you wonder why the struggle, why the turnover in coaches is it's burnout. Get to the end of the season, you're wrecked. The parents are treating it like it's like school. So they got the coach almost and goes, why is he not playing? Why is this not happening? I thought he was going to be better. We're going to take him this way academy on a Sunday. Like nowadays, there's kids training. I mean, there's 3 academies at the weekend. Matches 2 sections. They're getting loads now, compared to what probably we got. I got like an hour session a week when I was younger. They're getting loads now, but with that loads, the parent expectations are going higher. So then the pressure on the club for those players to be doing well and who's feeding into it are higher as well. So the only way for me, and obviously the club's going to love me for saying this, I think in the youth you need to get good coaches in, working especially with the younger age groups. And I think the coaches deserve to be paid for what they do, and the commitment and everything that goes out, and the amount of responsibility they now have. If we want to take ourselves seriously, you have to honour the workforce and pay the workforce for what they get at the back of it. So that would be my belief around it.
we've been in here for quite a bit of time, and apologies, we haven't actually
Sorry.
touched on the career, because it's been so enlightening to hear that. And do you know what I mean? When you're thinking about people who are trying to strive to better kids and progress Northern Irish football, we have a very unique calibre of football in the country. And it's been widely spread over the last couple of years. You're seeing the work that you're doing with the PFA, the likes of Jared at Niffle. What are those connections like? How do they all intertwine? And is it going forward as a trio, the Irish FA, Niffle and the PFA, is that a good working body together?
Yeah, it's one of the big things for me. FIFA Pro, there was the word governing bodies for all players' unions. And when I was setting it up, obviously, again, I was working for the Irish FA, so that was a problem for FIFA Pro, because you're meant to be close to the governing body, but you're not meant to be in the governing body. So that was a career change where I had to go, right, if the PFA has to work, I have to step away from my Irish FA role. The lucky thing for me was I built so many relationships within the Irish FA over the years, and right from the very top, Patrick Nelson, I always had a good relationship with. So I was able to go and speak to him on a professional level, and we could able to get things done with Graham Fitzgerald, Aaron Hughes, and then Andy Waterworth as well, and Angela Platt with the women's. We were able. It's good for me because I have that connection, so we speak. So that relationship's fantastic. With Jared and Niffle, we brought FIFA Pro over. Jared welcomed us in. Jared wants to grow the professionalism of the league. He's been very supportive. We speak regularly. There's sometimes conversations that I challenge Jared, and Jared will come back at me and hit back at the players, but that's what's needed.
Yeah.
So in terms of what we've got at the minute, we have really good communication, and we're having lots of discussions. The next step is, and this is where we get into the politics of football, is that we've applied, obviously, we want to get on the Irish FA Council. And when you get on the Irish FA Council, then you can sit on committees within the Irish FA and bring forward those decisions. But to get on the Irish FA Council, you need a X amount of the members vote at the Irish FA AGM. So there's an AGM coming up this year. I proposed obviously the PFA need to be on there, and the importance of the PFA being on there, because obviously,
just before you go a wee bit further, if we're England or if we're Spain, Netherlands, is there PFA on the board?
Yeah, so the PFAs have all intertwined with all the governing bodies and associations, and what you will have, and the best example is Stephen McGuinness in the League of Ireland, so that they'll sit on committees, they'll sit on discipline committees, that they will represent the players, international players, league players, and they will have discussions with the governing bodies around everything. So we are working with them, the Irish FA, and we're working with the Northern Ireland Football League, but we still need to get in. And if anybody understands the football in Northern Ireland, that's voted by the members are the clubs, and there's X amount of clubs in Northern Ireland that all have a vote, and divisional associations. And also, look, that's a process that's ongoing. It needs to happen. They have been welcoming, but whether it happens this year or next year, it will be achieved, and it's something the PFA have to do to get into the right bodies,
yes,
so that we can further make change and further bring the players' voice forward. And I think it's good for football. I don't see why there'd be any objection to it. But unfortunately for the Irish FA, I think over the years at these AGMs, they've been a wee bit messy with different political things going on and changes of presence this year. And there's a lot that our players probably don't understand. They're like, why don't you just get on there and, join the council, and then you can sit in the disciplinary committee, and then you can do this. That there's ways and means you have to navigate through it. But we're in a very, very strong position at the minute. And that's probably down to those relationships that we have, because we've done it the right way. We've spoke to clubs, and our clubs at the start fears.
Yeah,
they thought
you're coming in to take over. Or
a union. Yes. When you hear union, you think, close the doors, don't let them in. Whatever they do, they're going to come in. We kind of approached it in a different way. We said to the clubs, look, we know the league, so I know the league. I lived and breathed the league. I've played in it. I've seen how you operate. I've seen how you work. It's tough. It's difficult. We're going to come in and support the players and trying to grow it. But there's potential here. If we grow it to here, we'll work with you as well, and we can do this journey together where you can ring us and ask us advice, and vice versa. So it's, in a way, we're working collaboratively with the clubs. We're not coming in and saying you're doing this, this, and this wrong. Like, don't get me wrong. If a club does mistreat a player, or we feel the club's in the wrong, we will go after it. We will make sure the player's protected.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And that's our number one responsibility as the players. So the clubs are aware of that. But what we're not doing is we're not going in and just creating mayhem. Basically, we're doing it in the right way and trying to build those relationships so that we can work together, because it's the only way it's going to work, as you alluded to. That you could sit here and I'd come in here and hammer Jared Lawler at NFL and say what he's doing, or I could hammer the Irish FA or hammer all the clubs. But what was it get you? Was it get you?
Yeah.
So you have to be sitting down having constructive meetings, and those constructive meetings can get heated and can be like, well, what are you doing? Can you not do more? Can you not do more? And once you're having them talks, I think, and you're all working towards improving the game, and that's for me the most important thing. And I think that's missed at AGMs and things like that. There is football, and Seamus, he says it, come back to Seamus, and football people generally care about the game, and they generally care about improving the game. But if you're maybe sitting there and you don't care about the game, and you're from a different background, and you maybe don't love football, but you're in the administration side and stuff like that, that would be my only challenge, would be like, they're the people that need to think about what they're doing, because they're making decisions that impacts young players coming through, the future generation of footballers, and improving the game. And if they're in there for a political reason to win votes or something like that, that's obstructive to the game, and we're not about that.
Whenever you look at those meetings or those panels that you have to try and get yourself into, if you do be successful in this, you do manage to get that seat and promote players and promote the league, are you probably realistically the only footballing person that's probably played the game in those seats, or is there people there who've got a background in sport and want to see from a footballing side or from a player's perspective how this goes forward?
It's an interesting one. There's so many different committees. I couldn't comment obviously on all the committees, and a lot of people on the committees are fantastic as well, and what they've done for football and stalwarts, and you do get the odd ex-players in around it. But the way how football's went is that they've done so much work for their divisional associations and their clubs. They've done a great job of growing their own leagues and their clubs within their leagues and things like that there, that they've got years of experience. And this is something that we don't talk about enough, but the next generation of people coming through that need to sit on them committees need to be starting now.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And it's nothing against age or anything like that there, but you people that have probably been on committees and they're seen football for the last 30 or 40 years in this country. And
maybe enjoy the fact that it is the way it is.
Yeah. And that's what people, I think, don't understand when it comes to change in this country. And this is something that irritated me as an Irish FA employee, was that if something goes wrong, and you've seen it, like when I wore the Irish FA top, it was like wearing an Linfield top, you know, and it was, everybody hated you. It was just like, you walked in and they're like, oh, here comes the Irish FA, and you're just like, and Seamus was probably the same, and I'd be working there, I said, what have I done? Like, I'm trying to do my job kind of thing. Oh, IFA, typical IFA, and things like that. So there's a lot of level of blame associated to the staff and the people working within the Irish FA, but the reality of the model is, to make change, it has to go through the committees.
Yeah.
So the staff can do all they want. They can do everything. See if it gets to the committee, and the committee decide, no, not for us. We're not going with that, or we're against that, or one of the divisional committees challenge it. It doesn't happen. So change doesn't
Same
happen.
as any business, realistically. Like if your boss doesn't want to do something different than what they have been doing, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. And the only problem with that for me is that a lot of these people are coming in and sitting in the committees maybe, and they're not seeing the day-to-day work that's happening. The reasons why we're making the changes is probably to improve football.
Yes.
Not any other reason. It's not empire building. It's not to improve somebody's position.
It's not to take a seat. It's not to get them out.
Exactly. It's nothing personal. But we're listening to the clubs on the ground. We're seeing the problems, and we're going, this has to change. We have to make change. But that for me is the biggest challenge in this country. And until we get that right about how we make change, how it happens, and having more people, and it's not the fault of the people on the committee, by the way, because there's probably nobody wanting to take the seats either. They're probably looking at it and going, you sacrifice meetings, you're sitting there taking time.
You get no money for it. Like
nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. And they've got 9 to 5 jobs. So I see them coming in, they're shattered from their work.
Yeah.
They're probably getting a hard time at home saying, you're going out to another meeting and another meeting and another meeting as well. So yeah, until we get the governance structure right, change is always going to be difficult within football. And I don't think enough people think that. They just think, Irish FA is not doing enough. But unless you get the vote for it to go ahead, it's probably similar to the PFA now. In 10, 15 years' time, we're probably getting on the honeymoon period that we have started, and we're trying to do our very best and do everything right. We're growing it. Maybe in 10, 15 years' time, it could be the setup of the PFA that could come under challenge. And obviously, that'll be my role at the minute to make sure that we are set up as a structure, that we can make change and impose change. But yeah, it's something that gives me sleepless nights thinking about.
Well, last question on this before we move on, because it is so interesting to me, because you've just came out of football. You've been a coach educator. You've stepped away from it to start something completely brand new, which the country's never had. Which was, let's be quite frank about it, was needed. It's massive. Players need this. Who do you go to for advice? Because the country's never had it. There's no one here to advise you that you should be doing this, you should be doing this. You've got other countries who are 25, 30, 40, 50 years ahead of you. And you're trying to start off new in such a small league, but isn't full-time. It's madness.
Yeah, I think the first answer to that is that I mentioned FIFA Pro. So FIFA Pro is the world governing body for all player unions. So we go over twice a year. So we go over for a European board meeting and a world meeting, which is all the countries. And there's over 70 player unions throughout the world.
So you're not getting any Jim Boyce watches?
No,
nothing like that.
No, nothing. The FIFA Pro is kind of like you go across it's the association that pays the travel. So we pay the travel, they look after you, they put you up, and they bring you all together. And it's kind of, wow, I can't explain to you what you see in these rooms in terms of all the countries around the world talking about improving players and things like that. When I first seen it, I instantly fell in love with it. It was incredible. But you had PFA England there, who was a good friend, Simon Barker, who was representing them and paid for QPR, who I speak to now regularly. You had Maheda Malongo, who's a new PFA England chief executive, who I have never seen anything more impressive in my life. He actually talked to the whole group in 5 different languages. He was a lawyer. He's unbelievable, incredible, supporting us. And the PFA Scotland, Fraser Wishart, CEO, supporting us, and probably the biggest and most necessary supporter on this island, obviously, was Stephen McGuinness, who was the PFA Ireland chief, who had really difficult time with the whole situation down there with John Delaney and things like that there. So when you go in that environment, to be fair to England, Scotland and the Republic of Ireland, they just protected us and brought us in and welcomed us into the group. And for me, being 36, going across and putting your suit on, you're
first
acting,
time,
you're acting as if, I've got this, no problem. Please don't ask me a question. Please don't have all these things coming in there. But you're going over and you're sitting there, and a wee bit of you, and it was me and Stephen Laurie, who was the chair at the time, and still is the chair. And you're going to the room, and Stevie switched on as well. And he's brilliant. And you look around you, and there's PFA Malta, PFA Lithuania. I'm going, hang on, they've been in this association for how many years? They've been getting increased funding to support their players for the last 10 years. And
Malta's smaller than us, like in terms of league. They've like what, 6 teams or 8 teams or something.
And I could go further, and you go into the countries in Africa that don't even have divisional leagues set up and on. They're having real issues, and I'm sitting there going, why have we never done this before? Like, why has somebody not done this years ago and went and realised that you can get funding from FIFA Pro to help put money back into the players, to help support them and develop them? So you go out there and you think, this is an easy journey. FIFA Pro just open all the gates. How much money do you want to take it? For the last 4 years, we have had to go through everything. They have trailed us through our membership. We get audited every year. How many players we have. We have to go over twice a year. We have to show them everything. And it's just a layered approach. So this November, we are in a position now where we can be a full member of FIFA Pro, which would be literally me. I would think I might just retire at the end of it and just go because it has been a strenuous 4 years. And sometimes when I speak to players, and sometimes the old player will go like, what do you do at the PFA? A wee bit of me is like, I've only
got an office in Windsor, and I've seen you run up and down stressed.
Yeah, and have you seen what we're going out there and fighting? Because the reason is, if we get this right and fight hard and work with the PFA Scotland, Ireland and England and show them the need for it, we can be in a position next year where we're bringing so much more revenue back that we can invest back into our players and help them with education, grants and developing different things. And to me, that was always the end goal. It was always the one that, and you knew it yourself, I knew when I started, I'm not going to pay my dues, I'm not going to pay my membership and all this. So when I started, it was always the mindset, like, we have to change this thinking. It has to be changed that, no, you're investing into the membership because the overall picture, you're going to improve your own contract. You're going to improve what resources you can get, what you can get from it, and help you in your career. And we've done very well in that, because we've got, I think our membership sits at 75%, which for FIFA Pro it had to be 70. So we've ticked that box. We're now looking at the international team potentially about their image rights. And if we get the international team image rights together as well, that also increases what money then we can bring back in to help players, young players,
or create more jobs in the PFA that'll allow you to send people to do certain things to help.
Absolutely. At the minute, there's me and Paul Mooney, and Paul Mooney is doing it part-time and helping me, and he's been absolutely fantastic. He comes from a business background. He's helped me with the social media, the website, all the things that I knew I couldn't do by myself. He's come in and provided that support, and that's been fantastic. Then we've got Mickey Ward, who's a barrister, Helen McKenna, who has, like, not many people knows this, but negotiated the new deal for the international women.
Okay.
So around equal pay and improving standards for the international women's game. She is like leading.
And these two, like, are they volunteers who want to help out?
They are completely volunteers, and they remind me they're completely volunteers as well, because obviously in a legal job they are 9 to 9, and when they see me ringing, they go, "Oh no, what's he ringing for now?" But they literally, because they care, because they know Mickey, like, he's an example as well. Helen's an ex-international. Mickey came through the league, played obviously Glentoran, Dungannon, was at Leeds when he was younger, and he gets it, and he's a very clever Swiss man. So when I'm ever stuck, I pick up the phone, ring him, and go, "Look, I think I'm out of depth here. I think this is happening. What do you advise?" Same as Stephen McGuinness. Stephen's different to me. Stephen is, I would say, he says to me, it's almost like, just go in and you do this, and you go in, and he's a 6'6" centre half, and you just go, "Right, okay, I'm not messing with Stephen." I said, "Stephen, I'm a bit more different than you."
You stand behind Steve. My Steve, you go first, and you're popping.
Hi, Diva. It's Rachel.
And Jordan. Yeah, hi. Quick question.
Why are you not spending your Venmo balance?
Yeah, we're concerned.
You can, like, buy stuff with it.
Ugh, you love buying stuff.
And earn cash back on eligible purchases.
You love purchasing eligible things.
So the money your friend sent you yesterday, that's today's ramen or rideshare or eye patches.
The skincare kind, not the pyro kind.
Spend with Venmo, and you can earn cash back with Venmo Stash. Venmo Stash bundle terms and exclusions apply. Max $100 cash back per month. See terms at venmo.me/stash terms. ID verification required to use a Venmo balance.
We're working our pages. We have a fight kicked off. You used to win. Where's my game? Where's my game? Oh, okay. See him. Okay. But Stephen's different to me, and that's something that you have to appreciate. There's ways and means of doing things, but again, in terms of support, like you're talking about, without those people, it could get very lonely, because sometimes you're explaining to the players, you only get to see the players when you're in dressing rooms and contact them and you phone them, kind of thing. So without their support, we wouldn't be at the position we are. And we are in a really, really strong position. And I think this November, all being well, fingers crossed, that we'll get across the line if everything's in place. But it has been a slug, hard work. And it's I knew it was going to be hard work. It was one of them ones that started it. My wife was looking at me going, "Are you sure about this?" And I have to be honest, I probably, inside, I was going, I think so. I think we can do this. I think
you didn't realistically understand what it was going to entail fully.
And to sacrifice a full-time job at the Irish FA with 2 young kids was a massive gamble. When I look back on it, I think it just shows you when you're focused on something, and maybe that's my problem. I was just like driven. That was what I was going to do. I probably didn't think of the consequences of something going wrong within the next year, and things like that. And we'd just moved house at the time as well, so it was a big risk. And the dad talking, brilliant. This is brilliant. Told me, and my dad just kind of said to me, like, "Do you believe it's going to work?" And I was like, "Yeah." He was going to do it then, and then I was kind of like, "That was it. That was the bit that just went, he's right." Like, you know,
well, when you think about it on the other side, and the way I'm thinking about it right now is, if you didn't do it, do you think it would be done now?
I don't think so. And it's not.
That's not to criticize anybody else. It's not
arrogance or anything like that. I was very fortunate that when I got in and seen FIFPro and worked it out, I was coming back and telling everybody. I came back off the plane, you can imagine, come back, it was incredible. If we do this,
yeah,
get on my toes,
full of energy, all these ideas,
mental. And the PFA is ringing me, "You have to get this, you have to do this, you have to do this." I was getting so much good advice and support. At the start, I came back and I was like, I had to tell. But it's one of them things. Like I said, I had to do it whilst playing, which was awkward, whilst doing my Irish FA job, which was obviously a challenging, because the Irish FA obviously had a conflict of interest for him. I was a direct conflict. I had to sit down every year and explain what I was doing when I was having meetings, and the Irish FA handled that process very professionally, but I had to be careful because I couldn't overstep the line. And then obviously I took on in the middle of it all. I kind of stepped away from playing. I had to finish playing at Dungannon. There's a few clubs contacted me, but I knew if I was going to the PFA, I could be connected to a NIFL club.
Yes.
So that probably led me to my next journey, which was Kilmore Rec, in terms of making that decision really easy. But yeah, the question about anybody else doing it, I would actually hope there would have been something. I remember Sean O'Neill, I don't know if you're in the WhatsApp group. There was a WhatsApp group created around the tragic circumstances of Jerry Thompson. It was all Irish league clubs. We all came in and we all decided to, put money towards to try and support with the cost and support the family, because we were all saying this. And I remember I was just starting the journey, and Sean O'Neill goes, "We need a PFA in the country." And then all of a sudden, typical WhatsApp, hard thumbs up, and that alone
Was like, it's the right move.
do you know what I mean? That alone was when you heard somebody else saying it and other people approving of it. Then I rang Sean and explained where we were at. And I think that's where we're at. And I hope, and this is what I say to people, it's nothing to do with Michael Carvill. It's when I'm in the change rooms and I'm talking to other players, like I could leave this role now at the end of the year. Johnny Murray could come in, take over the PFA, but is always going to be
Set
the
up.
PFA. It's set up. So in 10 years, 15 years time, successes, it's still operating, it's still running, it's supporting players, and it's achieved these different things across the time. That, to me, is the most important thing, the success of it, and it makes sure it grows to where it needs to be.
The only thing I can say is going forward is for any of the players who do listen, it's massive to be involved. Like, as a player, the benefits that we're able to receive, I'm not playing at the moment, I still pay into it every month. It's something that you're going to have forever, but it's also for the sake of the money. It's not breaking your bank every year.
No, 100%.
You're getting access to cars, discounts, hotels, spas, medical, like treatments, whatever it is, PTs if you're injured.
Yeah.
There's so much in there that's being collaborated in a short period of time, which for the other 70 or the other 15, 25% that haven't done it, please get on it.
Yeah, it's something I always said. We're a funny nation, aren't we, with money? If they see value in it, they'll not talk about it.
I mean, what is it? If you put if it's say, it's not even, it's 75 quid, isn't it? Or?
It works. I think it works out for the professional player. It works out at £150 a year,
Yes.
but you get £100
£150
sports,
quid
£100
boots or
sports
something?
direct voucher back after 3 months.
See,
So
I
it's
didn't get that because of
the changeover.
a short period of time. I
You're injured, was it? Well, maybe look after.
but here, like, you're getting 100 quid back straight away.
100
Do you know what I mean?
so it's four. It works out. I did that. I tell to the players in the change room, it's £4.66 then for a professional player.
Just go in and just say, don't be fucking tramps. Get your 150 quid in.
Have
You're
you
getting
Costa?
100
Have
quid
you went to
back.
Costa recently or something like that? There, it costs you.
Literally.
And there's Galaborn discounts. I tried to build a model so that for all those players that complain financially, I played a lot of players that were miserable. Maybe I was one of them ones as well. People would have said that, but you'll get your value of your money back. But this was the best story that I seen. We were out in Portugal, and João Neves, PSG, comes on the screen, and it's in Portugal. They're hosting it, and João Neves made this comment, and he went like this, and Simon Barr was sitting there. I think Mohamed Malonga was sitting at the top table, and João Neves said something. He goes, "Hi guys, welcome all to Portugal. I never had to use the PFA in Portugal. Thank God, no." And I guess here, and I was sitting there watching it going, "Oh, João Neves is not class, not brilliant, isn't it?" And Simon Barker was shaking his head like he was raising. And I was like, "What's that?" Shaking his head a bit more. So later on, right for dinner and all, and I sit beside him, goes, "Wait." The João, that annoys me. And he got really angry. He goes, "That annoys me." He was seeing players say that annoys me. If only they knew the contracts they're signing.
Yes.
All around the world, any league they go to, FIFPro and all the players' unions have been the ones fighting, negotiating to get them their contracts. You think about the Bosman ruling that allows players to move, all connects back to FIFPro. You talk about going through all the changes in football that have helped footballers. So he was irritated that when a player says, "I've never really used the PFA," because that's what I'm trying to say to the players. Now
You're using them flat out.
yeah,
Yes. You mightn't see the work.
you don't see the work, but when something goes wrong, and we've had an incident recently, and it's an interesting one as well around matches and the calendar and the PIL and the amount of players that are expected to play, the amount of games kind of thing. So we now take that information and go, right, this can't happen again. So in the contract, we need to make sure that it aligns that players aren't playing that amount of games per week, no matter what the circumstances are, and try and protect them most importantly. But it was that message that I thought was excellent, and I probably would have been struggling to sell to players as well. It was like, the contract and everything we were fighting for is for your benefit in your career, to give you the better opportunities. And obviously, as I say, and if it is about money for a player, to improve the environment so that you can grow and earn more money for your football in a safe way, kind of thing. So that was the message that, you know, stood with me, was when he said he was annoyed that they said that we never used the PFA because he didn't understand.
So funny, isn't it, when you think back on, like, you've made millions and you're trying to say that.
Yeah.
Educate yourself.
Yeah.
Now, before we finish off, any player who hasn't done it, get your 150 quid in, please. It benefits everybody in the country.
Yeah.
Be professional, put the money in, get your vouchers, get a pair of boots.
On that as well, and this is the big thing we've pushed, and I was wary of this, and you know about this, and I'm sorry to reiterate, injuries and the risk of costs for a player
100%.
and a club. It is the greyest area I've ever seen in Irish League. When I lift up the old contract and I show it to 20 different chairmen, they'll give me 20 different answers around whether they think they should pay for it, or the players have to pay for it. Now, I've said to the clubs, I'm sorry, this is something I will not bend on. If you're a player as a professional playing for a club and you get injured, which is likely to happen in football, because you're putting your commitment, your training, you're doing everything you're meant to do to help that club. If you get injured, I think it's non-negotiable that you should be entitled to the medical expenses covered by the club.
Yeah, duty of care.
Duty of care. So it was a big thing we pushed. Now, when we did it, I think Crusaders had a really bad year for ACLs, and Cliftonville had a really bad year as well. We looked at it again, thinking, right, this is going to cost the clubs a lot of money because it's going up. So we looked at the insurance to cover and protect the players. So we were able to get an insurance product in for the amateur players, and we've now got one for the professional players. And in the new contract, hopefully, it balances that risk that for players. So the clubs will have a duty of care, but also the insurance through the PFA, coming from the members as well, together protects everybody. Yeah. So the players now know, no matter what club they are at, if they go down and do their ACL or sudden injury playing the league, there's cover there. And if it falls outside of the insurance, then the clubs are potentially going to be liable for it. But for me, it was just one of them ones that you look at as a player, I think, and maybe from my player's perspective, is that if like you give up your whole time, even when I was at Linfield, we were training 3 nights a week on a Saturday, you're going to the gym on a Wednesday, even when you were like, this was part-time.
Yeah.
And you kind of think, like, if you get injured playing for that club, that's their duty of care. Like, I mean, they have to come.
Well, I would have always taken that anyway. You would have thought, like, if you're in a workplace and you fall and hurt yourself, they're liable.
Yeah.
So it should be the same in football.
And with that is that the likelihood of injury in a career of football is very, very high. And if there's a potential of mitigating the risk and covering the players through insurance policy to safeguard you for ACL injuries and things like that there, that should balance out the risk. And no club, by the way, doesn't want to pay for the operation. It's just now when you're getting into the silly fees of 9, 10,000, 12,000 pound, and you have 4 of them, within 3 months. That hurts. That hurts the clubs. Like, but as a player, unfortunately, it's nothing you've done wrong. You've been trying your very best to perform for the club, to try and help them finish as high as they can, to try and push them on. I think that there's a duty of care there, and that's something that I think we've managed to make sure in this new contract that will be clear.
I've been very lucky that both of mine were covered.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't afford to drop that out.
And I've had players in the past that maybe weren't as lucky as you, and maybe one of them was on an amateur contract playing in the Premiership, and it broke my heart. And that was always the one that stood by me. I was always thought, it's not right. It's not right. He's given his whole time to do it, and he's got injured playing for the club, and he should be covered. So if we can put that in place, and the big thing at the minute with the women's is obviously we've got every female player in the NIFL Premiership covered.
Yes.
Now for injury.
That's an incredible. You only tied that over with Kingsbridge recently. That's an incredible incentive for any ladies that are playing.
Absolutely. And with the women's game and the susceptible risk of ACL injuries in particular,
percentages are so high for ladies and women and teenagers growing up, whatever way their bodies develop or whatever. There's
FIFPro did the research on it with Leeds University, and it was all around the menstrual cycle, stress, sleep patterns, pitches, even right down to, it's something I was completely ignorant about, boots designed for men, not designed for women. So the increased risk of an injury for a female player is ridiculous. And our female clubs are starting that journey where they're trying to professionalize, trying to do things better. There's not this, that's called spade a spade. There's not the same level of injection of money into the women's game. So if you have a female player, and the majority of our players are amateur playing in our women's premiership, the majority of them, there's maybe 2 or 3 clubs that have professional contracts. They're all, you get an ACL injury as an amateur player at one of those clubs. A, the club can't afford it, and B, that player could potentially, that's their career over, because if they wait for the NHS to do it,
you're a year, 2 years down the line.
2 years down the line, and then you go back to work, and then they probably think about it. Is it even worthwhile going back if I have to sit out for 3 years? So that's been a massive success, and thanks to Kingsbridge for that, and obviously the support to try and help professionalise the women's game.
You got to say too, like, I experienced Kingsbridge on my first ACL, and not to say that you're probably in one of the worst situations that you can be in, but it's one of the nicest places to be.
I am. They brought the tour, and I was like, my God, you get a menu? It's like a hotel.
Genuinely, it was so good. They kept me over and all for one night, and I was like, this is like, I was morphined out. I was living my best life for like 17 hours, and then the next day I tried to walk, and I was like, this is excruciating. But it's definitely
no. I think when you look at that, another part of something that always annoyed me was you had rugby and you had the GAA. And when the players got injured, they were treated like royalty.
Yes.
When an Irish League player got injured, it was like, well,
Kingspan, is the Kingspan, like, they're sponsored by Nice.
I think they're the Stadium. Yeah, does stuff like that there. So, and the amount of money, obviously, we know in rugby and come through GA as well. I just thought Irish League players would be great if we can make sure we give them that, where they get scanned, they get treatment, and they get back to the pitch. If we're going to say the league's going more professional, we're trying to improve it, there's no point doing it and just saying half-hearted. We have to then support the medical side of it and how we improve other parts of it to help grow the game as well.
But for you to get that connection, is it the matter of Michael Carvill driving to Kingsbridge, knocking the door, saying, can I speak to somebody, and I'm part of this and this is what we are?
The Kingsbridge one's an interesting one. Again, football connections. It's I think Alan Taggart of Sport Changes Life.
Yes.
Connection with Kingsbridge. Reached out, said you set up a meeting with Kingsbridge. We set up a meeting with Kingsbridge. Me and Paul went across. I think it was Fiona and Joanne met us. Fiona Dowd and Joanne. They showed us around and we explained what we were trying to do. We came up with an idea to try, I think it was a year ago, about a fund to potentially protect all players, similar to the GAA Croke Park Fund. We were always looking, how do we do this? How do we protect players, kind of thing. Sat down with them and we just built a relationship. And then we started looking at the women's game, and Kingsbridge started saying they're doing a lot of work around the women's game. They want to help promote. What can they do to support? Me and Paul then came up with this plan, proposed it to Fiona. Fiona brings it to the Kingsbridge board, and they went with on it.
All right.
It was like that. So it was kind of a case of, again, partnerships, people you know, and then when they seen what we were doing, they obviously realised that they're doing it properly and they want to really help here. So we're delighted for that. And I have to say this as well, the Ulster and the Benedict Clinic, absolutely fantastic with us as well. They've been very supportive of us over the years as well, with injuries and any other work we need. So we've built good partnerships just to try and make sure our players realise that when you join the PFA, you're also joining this, which is a wee bit more of a professional, elite medical support group as well.
Also that you don't...
Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength, Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
I don't know how far these podcasts go or they're reaching. Some of them can be massive, some of them can be very average, but if there is anybody out there who is looking to potentially help progress the game, can offer any sort of discounts, just get in contact and come to Michael, and Michael will take all of your money. Now, we've been in, I think, for close to an hour,
right?
And
okay,
we haven't actually talked about your career yet, which is probably going to kill us here, because I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but
we can avoid it.
Can't do that. Too successful to do that. No. But what I want to talk about is when we go back, I was able to speak to the Seamus, as we touched on beforehand, who probably mentored you, but at a very young age, you were able to go across the water.
Yeah.
You obviously signed for Charlton. You were at Leeds, which didn't actually happen for you. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about that quickly, and how that worked, because Leeds had just went into administration.
Mhm.
You were ready to go, and
Yeah, it was a real tough one. Look, I was very fortunate. I peaked when I was younger. From 13 to 17, I think I was just on a trajectory level where I just took off. I was going to travel every club in the Premier League. I was getting offered contracts over the phone from championship clubs and League One, and me and my dad were like bamboozled by this. My dad was a footballer, never come right, but he had never dealt with anything like this. So it just happened really, really quickly. And I was Manchester United School of Excellence. I went through with Johnny Evans the whole way. Played for the Northern Ireland youth teams, and then you get to a point where I went to Leeds 4 times, I think, and I went to Charlton 3 or 4, Man United and Arsenal, and the success at the clubs was really, really good, and they offered me contracts and different things. But there was something about Leeds that I really, really liked. Enjoyed it. The new building, it was class. The flight across was quick with small things and stuff like that there. And there was 2 boys from down south that were potentially going to cross as well at the same time, he had a relationship with. So it sat nice for me. But at Charlton, when I went across to Charlton, for some reason, I just always played well for Charlton. And it was like, I remember playing against Chelsea one time, and they were saying they hadn't beat this Chelsea team, and I scored 4 after 25 minutes. And I remember walking up at half time. I shocked myself, like, because the boy marked me playing in England. Like, they're not the same species as what we have over here. They a monster marking me, and he was quality. And I just managed to nip in, cut one, scored, and I had 4 goals. I was walking off the pitch, and my dad was surrounded by the Charlton staff, the kind of thing. You're not like half time almost. And I was going, oh, this looks good. This looks very promising, kind of thing. I was just floating, and it's amazing. And you know yourself, and your confidence is high. I didn't even think too much about it. I just thought this is normal. But I walked up the pitch that day, and I was like, the Charlton really, really want to get this done, kind of thing. They're willing to go 2 years scholar. You had to do a minimum 2 years scholar and 2 years pro straight away. Get it the thing. I was like, I don't know, Dad. I like it. I like Charlton now. They're brilliant now, but I want to go Leeds. And then we got back, and then I got a phone call from Leeds, and it was kind of like, look, we want you to come over, but we don't know if we can pay you. Clubs went to administration. We don't know if we're going to be able to fulfill what we previously offered and agreed. I was like, my dad was telling me this, and I was going, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. And we rang about and asked, and then I think then it was case of Charlton were brilliant with us. Charlton flew over to the door. Took my mum and dad out for dinner, met us, flew my mum and dad over, really looked after us. Brought us, knew I was a Man United fan, brought me to Man United fan, the game, the table. My brother and my sister was really proud, obviously, because they were all sitting there, and my brother's a Man United fan, he was loving life, and he was looking around. They asked him about his career, and he was saying he could have been a pro, but he didn't fancy it. And all I was sitting there, oh God, no, don't do this to me, like, don't ruin my dream here. And we were sitting there, and then I think Charlton did very well at that point, and helped me get across. Looking back on it, look, football's funny. I was flying, I was doing really well. My first year at Charlton, I had a great first year. But I realised I was stuck. And this is something that I talked to Andy Waterworth about, and I talked to the young players about now. The club was in the Premier League. The reserves were playing Jason Ewell, Kevin Nisbet, Dennis Romadal, and they were signing players to play in the Premier League. And it was just your pathway stuck. You're stuck. There's a gap. There's a gap, and you have nowhere to go. And it was my first realism, and people said to me, but see, if you want to play at the Premier League, you should be pushing them players out, kind of thing. I found it next to impossible to, you know what I mean, go and play in a reserve game with Kevin Nisbet and Jason Ewell and get on for 20 minutes.
Yes.
And I realised then at that moment, this is not going to work. And as you said, you're stuck there in that environment, and you're kind of across the water. You don't know who to turn to, kind of thing. But that was the real moment. And Alan Pardew came in. I was training the first team for a year and a half. Alan Pardew came in, watched me train for a week. I think I gave the ball away about 3 times in a 20 by 20 possession grid, which happens quite a lot in football, as you know. Some days you get it and things. And I think on the basis of what I'd done from I was 10 years of age to 18, 19, where I sacrificed everything to be a footballer, it wasn't one of these ones that didn't do enough or do extra, always did everything to try and make it. It was based on a 20-minute possession grid. I feel that Alan Pardew just went right. Yeah. And then the next day he called up, meeting, remember walking up the stairs thinking, what's this about? Sat me down and talk about cutting your throat. Just went, check next door. That's you.
That
that blunt. It's like next door. That's you. If you need anything, ring. These numbers. And I was just like, I didn't even say anything. I actually look back and I wish I would have said, "You arrogance."
Yeah.
I've done something or threw something.
I guess they're bringing you in as a naive young kid with no support.
No support. And I was only told literally before I was going to train. Oh, sorry. He offered me one more thing. You can train if you want. I was just like down. I was straight down.
No, you just want out of the
I got out of them. I remember driving out and top of tears like you're flipping turn on the music and you're flirting. You just
you just seem like Adele's team player.
West I think it was back in the day. Just like anything. Didn't even like that club. And you're driving out the gate and it is something I say to players as well. Like and you have to live and brave it. Like that was me damaged from that moment, and that is what I see in young players when they come back. And the amount of players I have seen come back from England to the Irish League, and I look at them, they're obviously quality, they're obviously really, really good players, and it doesn't work for them in the Irish League. People come back and say, "Not good. How do you get across?" And all things. They've been broken. Like they're coming back into the league, and their whole life's been turned upside down, and that's why I have respect for the players who come back and are able to get themselves going again. But I also worry about the ones that come back and just go, "No, it's not for me. We're done." And that's the saddest thing I think that can happen, is that when a player goes, he's obviously that, you know what I mean, he'll pretend he doesn't care. The famous one, I say, "Shit, I say exists. I'm not playing that. I'm too good for that kind of thing. I could have if I wanted to. I'd rather go and play with my mates." You know, realistically, what they're saying is they've been absolutely cut in half, and the experience of what they've had of
They
going,
don't want it again.
They don't want it. They don't want to feel that again of being told you're not good enough.
Just avoid it.
Just avoid it and pretend it doesn't bother you. But that's the reality, and that's what happens. And it's something that when you go to England, and obviously my wee man's a young footballer now, and I look at the parents as well. Back to the parents, always reduce back to this, and I think about how much they're putting in their son and all. I wanted to push on. And I goes, if you knew what the end line was, right now, you'd think twice about that. The way you're putting so much pressure on the footballer, because it's not Conor Bradley. Yeah, it's not Johnny Evans. It's probably a majority of the people that we know when we've grown up. Like at my age, it was me, Robert Garrett, Marty Donnelly, come back from England hoping to be a professional player, and then
or maybe doing the bounce. You have in your head where I'll do a year,
and bounce back. Yeah, and those boys have all had great Irish League careers, and as you know, the Irish League is a very, very, it doesn't get enough credit for how difficult it is to play in. People hammered, I'm in amateur league now with Kilmore-Reg, and then my people say about the Irish League and us, and going,
there's so much level.
Yeah, the levels, and at the Premiership as well. People watch it on TV now and say, "Oh, game was terrible," and things like that there. But you know, I mean, the levels and the quality of it when you go and play against those players, they couldn't survive. Like, and that's where a wee bit of me.
They actually, I guess, the stage where it's like, we just need to sharpen up here for 3 minutes. Yeah, and you're done.
Yeah,
like you would know most. You played against Wolves at the time. You got across with Crusaders, didn't you?
No, I didn't play in that one. I missed the Wolves game. I'd left Crusaders, but I played in loads of European games with Linfield and Crusaders. The Copenhagen one, out 44,000, and we went out with the crews, and oh my god! And I remember just going, wow.
Yeah.
No, I came off the pitch, and who was it? I think it was Richard Clark. Barcelona come here in the Champions League night and win 5-0, right? How good are Barcelona, right? First and foremost.
Yes.
Because we just played against a team there, and I kid you not, if they wanted to, they could have kept going, and I think could have won 9 or 10. And we were all busting ourselves, trying our very best, working it off, but the quality levels, is just, that's what I loved about Europe. We joked about it as the offer was then about, you realise, whoa, if that's what a footballer is,
you think you're good.
No, I'm not a footballer. That's what a footballer is. I'm not at that level, but I loved that when you looked at them, you just thought how good they were and the levels and the quality.
It's the greatest experience I think I've single-handedly ever had. Going to Europe, playing against people, you go out and you're like, the stadium for one, you go around it, the fans that turn out, you're getting 5,000-10,000, most paid to get a decent club. Yeah. And then you go on and you're like, head spinning. And you're like, holy, I'm way out of my depth. When you come back and you go in the Irish, you're like, I'm alright here.
Yeah,
like, this is my level.
We get fair again. Yeah. But we always struggled actually after Europe. We came back after Europe and and Linfield especially, we actually did well for rounds in Europe, got through. Now, we beat Faroe Islands. I remember loads. We beat 3 years in a row, we beat Faroe Islands. But the Faroe Islands teams were starting to get a wee bit technically better than us near the end of the journey. And then they've pushed on now, as you've seen at international level. But yeah, I think when you come off Europe and you play against some of the teams, I think we went against Bate Borisov before they qualified, and they beat us. But if we would have beat them, they beat us 2-0, I think it was, over 2 legs. But if we would have beat them, potentially their group ended up being Bayern Munich, Barcelona, and Bate Borisov. And I always remember looking at that going, oh, could you imagine? Like, could you imagine?
You're going down in history as getting battered 20.
Oh. It was incredible. It was class. But that's what, for me, I loved about it was going away with a team. You were treated like professionals. You're playing against internationals. You're playing against the top teams in different countries. And I just hope, and I really do say this, like, and when Lauren did it and got in, I was actually, I'm one of these ones that I was like, thank God, and finally, and I hope we can do a Shamrock Rovers. I hope we can do it.
I hope we do it most years and see. Like that time, the league's progressed that quickly over the last couple of years. Where the year Linfield had narrowly missed out, Matthew Clark obviously gives away that penalty the first year. They're moments away from it, and you're screaming, going, they're about to do this. And I don't know anybody who would have not wanted Linfield to do it because it just broke down fans. But at the same time, you're like, this is going to be unbelievable for everybody here. Do you know what I mean?
And I think that's it. And you should, like, the realization that I've learned as not to bore too many people about coefficients and FIFA Pro and UEFA and the way it works. The higher seated your league is and the international team is, the more investment you get from the governing bodies like FIFA Pro and FIFA and UEFA and things like that there. So
you're relying on us to do well.
Exactly. And I think the league's reliant on the clubs to do well, so we have to really back the clubs when we go into Europe. Like, and that's another thing, you have to get behind them, you have to support them. And with the full-time teams now, it's brilliant because, you know, we never had that. We were playing as part-time players. Boys,
just after 4 weeks off.
Boys are getting off, like,
2 weeks of
can we go on holiday or can we not go on holiday, or do you know what I mean? Some people, like, I remember, I think Glenn Ferguson, when I went to Linfield, he went to Orlando for a month almost at the end. No matter what, he was saying, I'm away for this month kind of thing. But I think now you have full-time footballers, they're in that environment, you can start to see now against, and the way they've restructured the whole European thing, obviously we could get drawn against anybody, which was fantastic. But I think now they're playing against more teams at their own level, and they get more chances to get through, which is obviously going to help us as well.
Whenever you obviously make the journey back, you settle in the Irish League, what's that like for you? Is it far different than what you ever expected it to be?
I always say this is the luckiest thing that ever happened to me was Linfield. Okay. I was at Wrexham, and me and Mark were living together, which had its own challenges as well. Where used to fall out overnight over FIFA, never forget it, and different things. It was mad. And then Brian McLaughlin, probably shouldn't have done it, probably illegal, like, but he was on the phone. What's the situation? I think Brian McLaughlin rang me every Thursday night, and you know Brian, from 9 to 10 every Thursday night from January to the summer, just saying, what are you doing? And he was brilliant. Like, it was really, really good. And then I went to Hamilton. I finished at Wrexham, went to Hamilton actually with Andy. And then Andy were at Hamilton together and trial, and was there for a month, and I actually had a really good time there. And then it was just one of them decisions that I didn't think anything was going to materialise, and I thought, right, it's time to go home. But it was just difficult to make that call because the message you're always told as a young player, and I'm sure all the young players are still told it, stay. As long as you can. It's all right saying that to a young player, do you know what I mean? Stay there as long as you can. But if you're not happy, you haven't got a good environment.
Mentally, you could be done.
Yeah, you're wrecked. You're exhausted. Like, when people forget you're training every single day, you get sick of football. You know what I mean? That environment, you get sick of every day going in, having to stand out, impress every single day. You're always competing, and you're competing against players you train with for the same positions, same contracts and all. And you don't have the same support network they do with their friends and their mates and their family over there. So you're kind of living in that bubble. And I think it just got to the point where I just went, right, this is time to go home. I went back to Linfield, and I was very, very fortunate to walk into the obviously talk of the town at the minute, David Jeffrey, who literally just wraps his arm around you and pulls you in, squeezes you. And he got me back in love with the game. Yeah. And Linfield got me back in love with the game. And in the first season, actually, Peter just left. Peter Thompson left. So then I signed. I was like, oh, Peter Thompson. And I was like, oh, jeez, that's the last thing I wanted. I'm not a goal scorer to that level of Peter Thompson. I'm a winger on. Don't put me up there. But I ended up going back, and Peter just left. And I remember playing with Glenn Ferguson, Noel Bailey, William Murphy, and you talk about leaders and good guys and just real characters and people that protected you. You know what I mean? They were the best like I've ever seen of it, and I was spoiled. Me and Robert Garrett talk about this. Billy Joe Burns talks about it. We thought that's what senior football was. You had people like that in your dressing room at every club. Yeah, they were the ones. And then when they left, it was kind of like we were looking around, just kind of like going. Galty stepped up next, I think, after that Mulgrew and all that.
Can't take him serious either.
Galty messed about too much at the start, and then he had to take him serious as a captain. He made everyone call him skipper, whereas Noel Bailey never.
Yeah, you just had to.
Yeah, we actually player called Noel Bailey skipper, which I loved, by the way. It was just like a total respect thing. Like, I mean, he's the skipper kind of thing. But then obviously Galty came in, but them characters and mentalities, they were winners. They were fighters. Then Sean Ward's and obviously Andy Waters, when he made that move across and sharing change rooms with all the Linfield players over the years. I can name them all. Linfield were like, and why did they win stuff? It's because of those people. And David Jeffrey just had the best man management I've ever seen. And one of the best I still think I've ever seen. I was very lucky to work with Stephen as well. There's from David to Stephen. And you're going, this is very similar, the way they speak to you, the way they make you feel, the way they talk to you, the way they support you kind of thing, and the way they call you randomly. Like you're sitting doing something, they ring you and you come off the phone, you'd feel like $1 million, and you're kind of going, that's my management, that's a class kind of thing. So yeah, and I love my time at Linfield, love my time at Crusaders and Dungannon. Really enjoyed my Irish League career, I think, and trophies wise, and won a few things, and was able just to enjoy it near the end. I think I need a new hip now. And that was starting to materialise at Dungannon, where I knew I can't move out. And then that's the worst bit, when you were turning up and training and you were getting physio. Physio was getting you ready to train.
Just so you can get out for a bit of freedom, and you're like, oh, I'm sore again.
I'm sore again. And then people are looking at you going like, he's done, like, and I was only young, still 32, 33, but I actually do need a new hip. I'm still waiting on a new hip. But
here, Kingsbridge.
Can't afford it. But yeah, that was difficult, that part of my career, when you realise, you know, that it's the one that's in the baseball film that I watched, Moneyball, isn't it? When the 10-year-old realises that one day it's over, like, yeah, you know what I mean? You have to stop playing the kid's game. It was that feeling. You kind of realise, like, yeah, this is, yeah,
attitude now, and you've step away from the step away with
kids and different priorities, which was great. But I think a few championship clubs contacted me, and my mind was made up that with the PFA, with work, with family, that I'd been so lucky to have a career where I'd won things and played with some great people and really enjoyed it. And even the rejections, I'm talking about Charlton, and I'm playing right through from Kilmore all the way through to where I finished and all. Like, I love football. Like, I'm obsessed with the game still. I am watching, and I always look back my career and say, you know what, one of them ones, did you do everything you think you could have? Maybe sometimes could have done a wee bit more or something like that, but you reflect back and you go, right, I'm at peace with it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I look at sometimes some players and they always say, I wish I was. I was like, I think you have to be afterwards, just let it go.
Content with what
you've done, and the sacrifices.
You'll eat yourself for years, wouldn't you?
Yeah, wouldn't you? And I think that happens quite a lot in footballers. I think footballers look back and are too hard on themselves, so to speak. And like, my family and different things probably supported me the whole way through. Very fortunate to have a good family, and obviously my wife now and my 2 kids still support me. I'm still running around County Amateur League for Kilmore every now and again when I can get the hip going and so on.
Tim Man, get the oil in it.
Yeah, that's not a pretty sight. Some of the Amateur League players are like, "Are you sure you played? Are you sure you played it?"
Just an old man, right? Just relax, you know.
But I'm glad to go back to Kilmore's my boyhood club. They approached me about coming in as a manager. And I thought I'd love to go back there. My wee man was starting the under 5s at the time, and I thought I'd love to go back and try and help. But since I went back, we've been lucky to get promoted, obviously, in the Premier this year. We've relayed a new 3G pitch. We have the youth system is absolutely thriving. This year we're struggling in the Premier, probably just unlucky with injuries and different things. But management is absolutely crazy.
Is it far worse than you expected?
It is. I rang, who was it? Stephen Baxter rang me 2 days ago. I go, Stephen, wow. I go see players sometimes as well. This is good because we need to see what you are going through and how difficult this is. Like I'm managing Kilmarnock, who's in the Premier at the minute, the Amateur League. The players, by the way, are all first class. They all pay to play.
Yes.
At Kilmarnock, they pay to play. They pay their dues per month to play. And I'm looking at that and they're coming up and why not train? And you're going, I'm working late tonight. I've got this done or such. And you're kind of going, right. And I took the opposite effect where I kind of go, right, they're amateur players and they're letting me know they can't train and you're trying to drive standards. You're trying to be there, but you can't kill it. Yeah. You know, you have to be realistic. But you're managing a committee then that wants success. You're managing I think you come back and they're thinking I was going to bring down the likes of Johnny McMurray and Billy Joe Burns were just going to follow me down to Kilmarnock, and I was like, that's not the way it's going to work. Like, you know, when you're going to have to try and develop players, local players in the local area, get them back on side and see if we can attract good people and do it the right way. And that's one thing I'll stand over the time at Kilmore is we have done it the right way. We haven't invested in players, we haven't paid players, and we've tried to do it in a way that when I leave, hopefully, the next person that comes in will come in. There's a 3G pitch. We've put plans for a new pavilion. The youth is absolutely thriving and doing really, really well. And the kids coming through, the community, all that is really, really good.
Yeah.
But it has been, as I say, maybe I'm starting like a martyr here about the hard work. It is literally been, we're on the phone on Friday nights, speaking to players, Thursday night speaking to players, telling them they're not playing, they're going with the seconds or something like this here kind of thing. And it's something that I always do because of probably David Jeffrey and Stephen Baxter, that when I dealt with managers that I maybe didn't get on with,
they didn't do
their stuff. No, they were the ones, and you probably dealt with them as well. There,
you get your 16 and that's it.
Yeah,
and then no one talks to you.
That's it. And then that I've seen that as well, and I've always remember the very least you can do to any player is give them an explanation. They may not like it. They might turn around and go, "I disagree with you," or so on. And I've had a lot of those phone calls. I've had probably players that have fallen out with me since I went into it. But you try your very best to think, as a player, what would you want the manager to say to you, kind of thing. So yeah, it's something I would recommend to all players that are. Normally, a lot of players say I want to be a manager, and they come on our coach education courses. And I think now that I'm sitting in front of the room with coach education, I can now give more sometimes and say,
I've actually done this and this is my experiences.
This is my experience. Just get out there and go and do it. If you think you can make it away, I look at Declan Cadell going straight into Crusaders. That's incredible. Like Jim Irwin going straight in, obviously where he went in Ballymena. Massive. Like absolutely massive. Like they're going from a player straight into a management environment. In what walk of life would that happen where you go straight in?
Your capacity going to the top.
Yeah, and you're expected to deal with a committee, a budget.
After never doing it before.
30 players, reserves. The youth would probably still want to know what you want the youth to do and all. And next thing you're managing a whole institution, a whole club. The way I looked at it was you have to go in a bit of level where you can probably get a feel for it and get a taste for it. And I'm glad I've done it. I'll never manage another amateur league club other than Kilmore. It's the only club I would, because it's my club and because I love the club and I came through the club and I probably owe a wee bit to my youth. Started there and things like that there, and it's Andy's club as well, so there's a strong community connection. But I think Stephen said to me, he goes, would you not be interested in, like, you know, maybe pushing on, go up the leagues and management and that? I goes, look, well, you never say never. I goes, obviously the PFA, I have to stay away with it, but I think I fear for the managers. Like, it is unbelievable what they are
too. Farrell's getting on top of you and results going your opposite way. And
like, I look at Declan Cadell, he doesn't mind me saying this. Like, I play with Declan, I know him well, I know Michael Connor well as well. But going into that match, I'm sure that week them boys didn't sleep. Like, and we just turned it on the Saturday to see the result. I didn't see it or see who won, who's going down. And them boys, and I looked at them and I kind of think you could just see the stress on them, and that's called spade. They're not getting, you know, life-changing money. They're not going to turn around, and if something
still working full-time jobs and
still working, the families, the commitments and stuff like that there. And we go back to David Jeffrey, and he's now made a decision, obviously, to go back into Portadown.
Which is a shock. I thought, like, I know they've been trying probably for a couple of years to get him in, but geez, I didn't expect that.
I thought he looked content.
So did I. He was happy. He's in him going to the media. If Joel Taggart's watching this, Joel, get me in. I'll replace him.
You promoted. That's the other. You heard number one on
That's the big man.
Oh God, he's a hard man to replace. I think that's his problem. I think probably that Portadown looked at it and probably went, David Jeffrey, fantastic in terms of what he's done and stuff like that there. Now I know David and the way he works and the way he operates, that he'll be looking at that and going, I can't go in and approach this like I've done previously for years. He'll probably be looking at the current players. He'll probably looking at maybe bringing in coaches or what way he wants to do it to try and change it and all. But again, David at Linfield, and I look at David Healy at Linfield, it's the like anybody who takes the Linfield job is accepting that they have to manage that demand and the pressure and all that goes with it, and how David did it the way he did. And to be fair, and David Healy, I never got to work under David Healy, but I know David. And how he's managed himself during this process is incredible. Like how they sustain that and still are able to carry on. So that's where my level where I'm at. Obviously, the amateur league, I realise you appreciate what the managers are doing and how difficult the job it is.
Whenever you think about potentially expanding, growing up, getting into those sort of PIL, Championship, Premiership, I know you have a wee bit of a conflict of interest in a minute, but it clearly seems like that's something that at some stage you want to scratch that itch, Chad, and
yeah, you love the game, like, and I think that's what David Jeffries is the best example. When you have a love for the game, you want to be involved in it. Now, to what capacity? That is, and what you do. There's this thing I always had this dream in my head. This is another part of my crazy dreams. I'll share was the Kilmore Rec dream was almost like a team that is in the amateur league, kind of like a Salford City. You know what I mean? You look at it and you go, right, can we build that? And we had a good committee working there, and they're trying to grow it, and they're trying the new conference leagues and things like that there, and there's pathways. And you think, in our area, wouldn't that be another great thing if you're able to bring a club into the NIFL structure and over years push them on and develop? That was like, there's something about me that I like the idea of building something towards it. And when you're passionate about a club, which I am about Kilmore, I think that makes it easier. What I would struggle with probably going to the PIL, Championship and Premiership was, I don't know about you, but I was never a fan growing up.
Yeah.
Kilmore is my club. I would have been interested to see what Kilmore were doing in the amateur league.
Would be the exact same.
Yeah, people say, you're a blue man. I goes, well, I played for him for 7 years. I've got a lot of respect for him. There's some great friends there. Are you a Cruise? I'm not. Well, I played for the Cruise for 5 years. So, do you know what I mean? I was never really a fan of per club. I had great times there, and obviously I have a lot of love for a lot of those clubs that I played for. But you kind of, I think as well, there kind of has to be a wee bit of it that has to have that connection that really wants to push on. And also with it, I think that the pathway for the managers in the Irish League, if we're being realistic, like, you know what I mean, over the years, I can think of, since my being there, I don't know if you think the same, you know, Tiernan has went on to Derry City and done a great job, obviously, with Lauren and went on to Derry City, but that was the next step up. I think Owen went somewhere to Scotland. Yeah, I'd worry about the trajectory of their
the only person who's probably escaped who's been involved at a massive capacity is Dermot O'Carroll.
Yeah,
and that's one out of thousands.
Dermot, I was very lucky to work with Dermot O'Carroll as well. Dermot was coaching, loved it, obsessed with it, and the best networker I have ever seen ever. Like, in terms of, let Dermot loose in a conference, you know what I mean, to come back with 4 job offers, he was just incredible.
And the thing is too, I spoke to him at the time, and I was trying to consider about, I done the A license with yourselves when we were doing this, and I spoke to him and I was like, what can I do next? And he was like, mate, I went to America. And then I was like, well, what about the family? He goes, they stayed. And I'm going, do I want it enough for me to solely drop everything and go to America? Probably not. And then I'm going, that's why he's getting to where he is, because his sacrifices are massive.
I totally agree. I'm the exact same. He said, I remember sitting with him and I was going, we're going to America.
I know.
I was like, actually going to America.
Vegas would be classic.
I might go over a visit.
There's no way she's allowed me to go to Vegas.
Oh, well. And I was sitting looking at going, you're right. We hit the nail on the head. And now he's out in Sparta. I get this wrong, Prague. He's out in Prague at the minute. He's Michael O'Neill's assistant sitting there, and he's got a big say. And I've seen him come in and do presentations, and he has done fantastic. And I'm delighted for him, because he's a real good guy. He's a real good guy.
And he's a lovable person.
He's a lovable person.
When you speak to him, he's just like, I got the chance to play with him. I got to learn from him that way, but you couldn't dislike that.
No, he was in our Crusaders team as well, and you could see it in his head. Me and him would always have this as well. I mean, working on Coach at the same time, me and him would have been like saying things about different things and all. But when he spoke to Dermot, it wasn't a case of he was doing it for a job.
Yes.
He loved it. He was passionate about it. Like, when you challenged him about something, I remember we did have a challenge over something, like, he was like, I was him. See, for the next week, he would send me stuff, like, going, remember we talked about this, but look at this. So you could see why he's got to where he's got. and he's probably at the sacrifices that he has with his family, and that's what you look at as a manager and a coach. You've got to be willing, I think, if you want to make a career of it, you've got to be willing to sacrifice and leave probably this country. If you want to get into a full-time professional environment, they ended up at Newcastle as well. Do you know what I mean?
Headhunted near enough.
Exactly, and those are the sacrifices you have to make. And if some people want to make them, fantastic. But I think at my stage now in life, I'm probably looking at it and going with 2 young kids and a family. It would be nearly impossible to go in that full-time environment. So you need to look at that and think, you know,
because you're relocating everyone, aren't you?
Yeah.
School, everything's going. You're trying to figure stuff out.
And what's the world of football? You could be gone in 3 months.
Well, yeah.
And what do you turn around and say then? Like, we're moving back kind of thing. So it's that massive, massive commitment. But I have a lot of respect. I have another good friend, Chris Caseman's over at Ipswich as well, did something similar. They made the jump and they went with it. And they're obviously, I wish them all the very best. And no doubt they will be a success, man.
The last thing that I want to touch on is coach education. You are at the pinnacle of it near enough. You're doing the A license, you're doing the B license, A license, pro license. You're involved.
I don't do the pro line. I've got my pro license, but I don't deliver on the pro.
Deliver. But whenever we first step in, we obviously, it's familiar for us, and it's one of the most daunting experiences for anybody who jumps in, because if you get the opportunity for anybody to go in as a player, do your B license, do your A license on that pro course, there's nothing like it. You meet people from all around the world, other professionals, and your arsehole falls out. Like, that's the only way I can describe this. Is we were sitting with Jordan Stewart, Stephen Taylor was our group. You're looking at these pros, and you're sitting going, I have to try and tell him what to do here, and you're trying to get used to these things, and it's so daunting.
I remember, I think Sean Paul Murray, he's done a great job. He's obviously took over from Nigel Best. He did a job before him, Sean Paul, and I got the job, and I think my job was the lead coach education. So I had to oversee the B Pro and the A license. And I remember, again, talking about your feelings, I was kind of looking at it and going, oh my God. And you see the names coming in on the professional courses and the professional players, and you're coming in, and you're standing at the front of the room, and this is what the best bit of advice I got. You're not telling them how to coach or what they should do. You're creating an environment where they can learn.
Yeah.
When I changed that mindset, walking in the room was really easy. But at the start, probably in early days, you're trying to get in, you're trying to like show what you know, kind of thing, and that's the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you can do, as you know. But every coach that comes on the course, I love it, because to walk in that door and you can see the fear in everybody's face, and you can feel it. And I'm even going back to like Mendieta, who was on my course. I'm looking at him going, why are you?
As you say that, your course was the first time that the BTAC was used up at thing, and you were a part of that. So there was like Joey Barton was involved with Mendieta. I think Johnny Evans was there. Southgate, or no, what's his name?
Eddie Howe was Eddie Howe was over. There's the amount of names.
Yeah, it was because I would never forget this. We played at 11v11, and you guys had put like Mendieta in the middle. He won the World Cup.
Yeah,
Joey Barton, Johnny Evans, as our team was playing against them, and to this day, I was like, "This is the most surreal experience."
And I remember the Mendieta was just like, I remember seeing him he was nervous, and I was going, "My God, I'm delivering tomorrow. I'm nervous. I'm writing my session plan out. What I'm going to do, you know." I'm in him, and he's nervous. How you can't be nervous. You've done it. He's like, you should be walking out there tomorrow, just putting your chest down, going, "Do you know who I am?" kind of thing. I'm going to deliver this session. But those are the stories that you learn, and you say to our local coaches and our local players as well. You say, "Look, I know you're really, really nervous here and panicking, but these are pro players with played in the Premier League and playing in front of the Premier League every week. Put them in their session," and then you realise that, I remember you, when it clicked to you, you've seen them going on the pitch, and they were like delivering a session. You're going,
because you matched us. I always remember you put, I think it was me and Jordan Stewart together, and you had to do a small segment, and it was a couple of minutes, and it was very basic, like you're going to play like 5v5, and if you see something wrong, you just stop it, whatever you want, and then you jump in, stop it, but you're both looking at each other going, what do you do here? Do you say something or do you not say something? And then you're doing that with somebody who becomes your mate, and then within 2 days, it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
It's the first time where I've ever thought to myself, you're in there for that long period of time, it's long hours, but it's professional.
Yeah.
And you actually think and constantly continue to think like a coach or a manager.
Yeah.
And it's like, I could see myself doing this. And the only problem is you come out of it and you start playing again, and then you forget it.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I think you leave on the Friday, and I see this, and you're the same as me. You leave on the Friday, and you are buzzing about the coaching and management side of the game. And then, as you say, you have to go back and play, but and you're not that is you have to keep playing, obviously, and you want to keep playing. But if you leave on the Friday, and I see players in this as well, and you can see they liked it, but they didn't love it.
Yeah.
That's also the sign that maybe coaching and management isn't for you. But I think it's great, the coach education setup and the way it's working with what Sean Paul's done and the staff, how they make people feel when they come across it. It doesn't get enough credit for what they're trying to do. And there's this myth about international candidates coming across and this and not the locals or this. If they understand the dynamic of it, we need international candidates to come across so you can lower the cost of the education to help the people here.
Why would you want more people there? Like the connections that we built over a very small period of time, you're getting people from all walks of life. Like people came in with some of the maddest jobs.
Yeah.
Like Charles Hemberg came in and he was like the assistant manager at
Sao
Paulo, and you're sitting going, and remember we were sitting with him, and he was like, if we get beat tonight, I'm sacked.
Yeah.
And we were like, what the fuck's going on? Like the next morning he came in celebrating, everybody's going nuts. You're like,
still 4 o'clock in the morning.
How are you in that job?
Yeah.
And like you were like, you only have your B license.
Yeah. It's incredible.
It's insane.
Yeah. And there's the argument, and there always will be the argument, and we said to everybody in the room. I remember I was the last professional course, it was the international team was on, basically. So it was Steve Davis, George McGuinness, we're all on the course. George Saville.
Well, I think like Kieran Caldwell done.
Yeah, Kieran Caldwell is on there.
Done.
Yeah, there was a load of them, and one of them asked me a question, and I won't say which player it was, but I'm glad they did ask the question. They said, like, is it a money racket? Is coach education a money racket?
I heard it washes its face near enough.
Yeah, and I was able to turn around and go, like, if you actually look at it over the grand scheme of things, it probably does wash its face with the investment, the staff, facilities, and the way they try and do things. But if that's the narrative, you know what I mean, out there, this is what I will say. The tutors on the course, all they actually get out of it, all they care about is hoping that they're able to educate somebody on that course, that they take something from it, use it, change it, and improve themselves by the end of the week. In 5 days of a course, people think that's a long course, but the amount of change you can make in those 5 days is very, very limited. But what you can do is make them leave with thinking differently, like the tools, excited about going into management, knowing that they can reach out for help and support through the Irish FA and things like that there. And I think that's what the Irish FA actually have a really good name across Europe in. Probably our locals don't realise is that a lot of the candidates travel across.
They want to, don't they?
They want to come across. They pay big money to fly across, and then they go back and tell them how good it was and how much they enjoyed it. And I think that's down to the likes of yourself and different people who have bubbly personality. We're very good at that in this country. Yeah. We invite people in. We're hugging them after 2 days, jumping them,
taking their cars and
do you know what I mean?
And then everybody's drunk at night. They're like,
exactly. You all used to do is drink. You're like, oh, like, you get to enjoy yourself at the end of it, kind of thing. And you build that connection and make them feel like, you know what I mean, a good environment. And then you also try and give them stuff to help them professionally. But coach education for me was, as you say, was perfect at the age I was, because I was given a responsibility. It was difficult. It was challenging. You were sometimes delivering sessions. And
sometimes they go well, and sometimes they don't. Like
I've had some car crashes over
it. I have one memory of one of the sessions we set up, and it was Kieran Harding put a session on, and he picked the team thinking, I can do this in my setup. And I've never seen a session go as completely wrong as it could in my life. It was like 9 or 10-0. The balls were just flying down. Nobody could cope with it. And he was stuck. And you could see himself going like, as a coach editor, I've f***ed up here. Yeah. But this can happen. Yeah. And he's like, listen, that's a prime example of sometimes your sessions work, sometimes your sessions don't work. Yeah. So what do you do next time? And it's like, it's true. Like,
probably what people don't see is what we do afterwards is we go into the room afterwards and we'll sit down, and it's literally like, I remember Nigel Best tore strips of me, like absolute strips of me over my session. I was in there, I thought I was good. I thought they covered this or this and this. The feedback you get post from the fellow candidates and obviously Sean Paul and stuff like that there is like intense.
Yeah.
So to the point that you leave that night and it's good for you because you go back in the next session.
I'm not doing that.
You don't make the same mistake again. And I think the Candace, and you're right, and when a tutor's delivering a tutor session, they're expecting, and this is where I kill it straight away, you're expecting to see something here that is unrealistic and it's going to be perfect and all bells and whistles. Realistically now, and now that I'm out coaching all the time, there's no session I've ever delivered that's been perfect and everything works well and everything's good. There's times where things go right and things go wrong. The most important thing is that you know when it's going wrong.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I'll say.
Kind of own it and be like,
Own it.
Yeah.
And it's the ones that deliver a session that's not great that think, that was a great session, fantastic, job done, players loved it. That's where you kind of have to challenge them and go, like, but what learning occurred? What did the players
it's
get
okay
from
to
it?
learning too, because you're kind of assessing you assess yourself, and you sit down with, like, I sit down with you after the session and you're like, what do you think? And then you kind of just go, well, it was this, and you're like, don't do it again. Pretty much. Like,
exactly.
I can't really say much more. I would advise you to do this and this.
And I don't know what your
You gotta
thoughts
learn
are
it.
as a player. I don't know. It didn't really help me in my career, I think, doing coach education.
No, I said this last week.
Yeah.
Mate, it killed me.
Because then you're looking at every session going, what's this session
God.
about, or what's that about? And then you're
killed me.
like, just play. Don't stop thinking like a coach. Just play.
I was thinking, why am I running here? I wouldn't be running. If I could tell, I wouldn't be telling. I was thinking, and I think towards the end, it probably caused, I wouldn't say it caused me more, but it caused myself a lot of problems with my career. But at the same time, I was like, starting to think then more advanced as to like what way I would set up. Well, I'd set up, I guess, they're going to play like this. Surely we would do this. And then you're getting beat. You're going, what the f*** are we doing?
I'll tell you a story.
That killed me.
And I did the exact same thing. When you get above your station and you need knockdown a peg, I get the best knockdown ever. I was doing the coach education, youth, like the grassroots, NCC, and with all the coaches. And I was playing for Enfield, and we were playing Shamrock Rovers in the Santa Cup. And we went down, and we got it was like a European game. We got annihilated. And I mean, there's bodies moving everywhere. The inverted wingers, inverted fullbacks. They were doing stuff. We were playing, I think we were playing still in the days with 4-4-2, and we were just direct. And I remember 4-0 down. And then Billy Joe put one in the top corner. I remember 4-1. And we're in the change room afterwards, and David Jeffrey's the manager. And I was very quiet. Again, I didn't really say much. And he goes, I was furious after the match. I was just annoyed because I felt there was a good chance to show that, you know, we can compete.
Yes.
With Shamrock Rovers, and we got destroyed. And Danny went through it all and things like that there, and he challenged stuff like commitment and desire and all the key words, and I remember just sitting there, and I don't know why I did it this day. I still cringe when I think back. I was, Davey, to be honest, tactically we were totally right there, and it was out of my mouth before I said it, and I tried to pull it back in. Now I'm not blaming you. I knew you pointed to the front of the room, Brian, Alfie, and Davey. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying, do you know what I mean? Like that. But David Jeffrey, being the man that he was, read the room. He just went, yeah, actually, like a wee puppy dog eyes, and he goes, probably right. Like out there, and I remember sitting there going, oh, why did I over my mouth? Why did I say to myself, I am never saying that again. Just don't speak it. Just take it. Just take it. I thought I was trying to help, and I thought I was trying to say, like, tactically, like, their wingers were going in. Yeah. Billy Joe and everyone was getting sucked in, and the boys were running past me, and we didn't know how to stop it. We were lost, kind of thing. But I think that was a lesson as well, that when you're a player, yeah, obviously go and speak to the manager maybe and say, like, do you think privately, yeah. But the challenge in the dressing room afterwards. But David being David, I think he knew my character. I hadn't said much in the first 3 years I was there. I wasn't one of them players that was out to do it to be like awkward or create an atmosphere. It was just, you genuinely thought you knew something, you thought you'd say it, and then I regretted that ever since. But you're right, as a player, sometimes I always say, play, maybe go and speak to the manager about coaching and learn from him, but you just have to be careful not to cross that line, because if being a manager myself, if players start dictating, start saying, you should be doing this and we should be doing
other
that.
players, and then you find yourself going, I think if we had been right today, we could have won because we should have done this. And then it goes and it spreads, and
then you go, and
then you don't want it, because most of the time, like, you do become friendly with people, and once you become that senior player, you're more closer probably to the management and the staff than you are probably the younger age group. So
and that's somewhere where you're probably going now. And I struggled with that at the end of my career, was being too close to the manager. Chris Lindsay was my manager. He was brilliant. I love Chris at Dungannon, but Chris then would have maybe spoke to me as a senior player about it, and I was kind of like a wee bit like, oh, I don't know, this is different because I'm usually the young player coming in and so on. So he was speaking in, asking advice and so on. And the Dungan team was quite young. And I didn't like it because you're still playing and all your focus as a player is like, okay, I hope I play well, never worry about it. I'm not going to talk about anything else.
Leave me in the bench.
Get me on it. Get that young lad off it. You know what I mean? And I didn't, that stage as well comes, and you're probably, hopefully when you get back playing, you'll be going in, you'll be realising that the managers might come to you and tell me what you think about this kind of thing. You're kind of going, hey, I'm all right.
I just want to focus on Saturday.
On your Saturday as well, yes. So it's it's the stage of football, I suppose, isn't it, that we all travel through.
Well, listen, thank you. I'll not keep you more. I know you have to get the kids, and as much as we could sit and talk, probably go dive into your career a bit more. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah.
And we finish on hugs.
Thank you very much, as always.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, really enjoyable. Really appreciated it. To anyone, as we've touched on here, if you are wanting to get involved in the PFA, we fully support it here at On The Spot. I'm still a member. I will hopefully be back playing at some stage. I will continue to be a member. If you haven't, please do it. Michael, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. See us next week for another fantastic guest. Thank you so much.